Well, let me go back to that phrase that I probably threw out too quickly. You become the God you worship, all right? It's almost that simple. You've heard me say in other contexts, your image of God creates you. Your image of God creates you. It validates you. If God is an eternal torturer, let's be very honest. Torture is validated all the way down, and we just look at Christian history. We've had no trouble with eliminating our enemies because God does, you see. So, with that as the basic principle, that we become the God we worship, we're simply saying that if God is perfect friendship, perfect communion, an event of communion, as some theologians have called the Trinity, then, and I'm created in this image, then I'm an event of communion. This same flow is my deepest self and my deepest identity. So your anthropology, your sociology, your psychology, let me use those words, proceeds from your theology, I think. Now, most people wouldn't probably look at it that way, but I would. Because we had so many problems with our Western notion of God that the majority of Western people have now thrown out the notion of God. And I can understand why. It was so problematic. This Zeus figure throwing thunderbolts down at creation, the creation that this God didn't like, created a very fear-based, insecure, unloving, competitive universe. So if we can rebuild from the bottom up and say the very shape of God, therefore the very shape of being itself, creation itself, is love. Suddenly, well, it probably won't happen suddenly, it probably happen gradually, but sometimes it happens suddenly for an individual. We read reality and our own nature in a very different way. What we were created for, what this is all about. And it's not a contest in which I am in competition with my neighbor, but in fact it's a giant dance, what Merton calls the general dance, where I can either join in or remain a wallflower. If you want to be a wallflower, that's fine. It really is. I think God will perfectly allow you to be that. But they thought it was such a disastrous decision that they chose very demanding metaphors to say, don't make that decision. And those became things like purgatory, hell, eternal punishment. Don't miss out on the dance, you understand? It had urgency to it. It had ultimacy to it. So your notion of all relationships come from, I think, the primary relationship, which is God, you see.